Prime Minister expresses deep sadness and outrage at the brazen attack on the security forces and the killing of Private Renil King in the line of duty.
I, like all well-thinking Jamaicans, feel a great sense of outrage at this and other killings and attacks on our security forces and their families.
Education Minister calls for investigation into exam anomalies following the release of the CXC results. Still tonight, 3 COVID-19 related deaths and 135 new cases recorded within the last 24 hours. And State Minister in the Ministry of Health and Wellness, Mrs. Juliet Cuthbert-Flynn, tours the Victoria Jubilee Hospital.
Just coming in and having this tour today, I am quite optimistic.
Good evening. This morning, a Jamaica Defence Force soldier, 21-year-old Private Renil King, succumbed to injuries he received during a gunfight with armed men in Milk River, Clarendon last night. Now, the soldier was part of a joint military police team that was deployed to a location in Milk River on an anti-narcotics operation. Our newsroom understands that the joint team arrived at the targeted location at approximately 6:30 p.m. yesterday, and while conducting search operations, they came under fire from the armed men. The fire was returned, and during the gunfight, Private King was shot and injured. The joint team provided first aid to Private King before he was airlifted by a JDF helicopter to the Maypen Hospital and subsequently to the University Hospital of the West Indies, UHWI, where he unfortunately succumbed to his injuries. Approximately 2,900 pounds of marijuana and a boat was seized from the location. Investigations are ongoing. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Andrew Holness expressed deep sadness and outrage at the brazen attack on our security forces, resulting in the killing of Private King in the line of duty.
I am profoundly saddened by the killing of Private King, and I want to express my sincere and deep condolences to his family and his colleagues in the security forces. I was briefed shortly after Private King was airlifted to hospital, and we were all very hopeful indeed. We were all praying that he would survive the injury. So you can imagine my great disappointment and sadness subsequently learning that Private King had succumbed to the injury. I, like all well-thinking Jamaicans, feel a great sense of outrage at this and other killings and attacks on our security forces and their families. The Jamaican state will not be deterred. Indeed, we will redouble our resolve to be relentless in the pursuit of those responsible. The criminals will be brought to justice.
In news from Westmoreland, 26-year-old Chrisanne Gale of Roaring River was arrested and is now facing several charges following the kidnapping of a teenaged girl in the parish on September 14. Reports coming into our news center tonight are that at about 10 p.m., the teen, who is the mother of Gale's 9-month-old child, was at home when the accused entered the home armed with a gun. Gale then ordered the complainant to go into the bushes with him, where she was hit several times with the weapon. The teen managed to escape the next day and was taken to the hospital. A report was made to the police and an investigation was launched. Gale subsequently turned himself in to the Whithorn police in the parish on Saturday, September 19. He was yesterday charged with burglary, kidnapping, illegal possession of a firearm, assault at common law, and assault occasioning grievous bodily harm, following a question and answer session. His court date is being finalized. Still making news tonight, in light of public concerns and initial observations by the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, Minister Favour Williams has written to the chairman of the Caribbean Examination Council, Sir Hilary Beckles, requesting a thorough investigation into several anomalies that have been brought to the attention of the Education Ministry. Also, the minister said that she has sought to ascertain from CXC the circumstances that led to results being sent directly to students before schools and the ministry. This occurrence prevented the ministry from identifying in advance anomalies or errors in the results. The minister emphasized in her letter that, and I quote, "It is in the interest of the Caribbean ecosystem that confidence remains in the system. As such, a transparent investigation must commence immediately," end quote. The minister says that she is assuring the public that the ministry continues to advocate in the interest of Jamaica and will ensure that the challenges being faced by Jamaican students are effectively addressed and resolved. Meanwhile, Shadow Minister of Education and Training Dr. Angela Brown-Burke says dialogue between the leadership of the Caribbean Examination Council, CXC, and stakeholders, including students, parents, and school administrators, is a necessary process in order to address mounting disquiet about poor grades. Dr. Brown-Burke said, and I quote, "This process of dialogue would be helpful in identifying any areas that could benefit from reconsideration, including any inconsistency in grading, comparison of student profiles and their performance. An examination of the curriculum and what was expected might also be a useful tool in this analysis," end quote. She also said that given the concerns of students and parents, it is important to ensure that students of modest means are not prevented from making queries because of the costs involved. Dr. Brown-Burke says she acknowledged that all stakeholders are clearly interested in protecting the integrity of the system while ensuring reduced stress amongst our students during the pandemic. As we continue to track the COVID-19 pandemic, the Ministry of Health and Wellness has reported 3 additional COVID-19 related deaths and 135 new cases across the island within the last 24 hours. Now the deceased are an 84-year-old woman of a St. Catherine address, a 46-year-old woman from St. Elizabeth, and a 68-year-old man of a Clarendon address. Now, the latest fatalities take the death toll from COVID-19 to 80. The 135 newly confirmed COVID-19 cases takes the total of cases on record for the island to 5,723. Of the newly confirmed cases, 69 are women and 66 are men, ranging in age from 1 month to 92 years. The cases were recorded in Kingston and St. Andrew with 78, St. Catherine 14, St. Elizabeth 11, Clarendon 11 as well, Portland 8, St. Anne 4, St. Mary 3, Manchester has recorded 2 cases, St. James 2 cases also, and 1 each for St. Thomas and Westmoreland. Meanwhile, recoveries increased by 6, taking the total of recovered persons to 1,496. 44 moderately ill patients and 7 critically ill patients are among the 4,063 active cases currently under observation. In news from the capital, State Minister in the Ministry of Health and Wellness, Mrs. Juliet Cuthbert-Flynn, went on a tour of the Victoria Jubilee Hospital earlier today. More on this story with Colleen May.
The newly appointed State Minister in the Ministry of Health and Wellness, Juliet Cuthbert-Flynn, toured the Victoria Jubilee Hospital to meet with staff and other stakeholders to discuss the latest development of the hospital earlier today. Mrs. Cuthbert-Flynn outlined the extent of work that have been undertaken at the hospital and will be meeting with Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton with the updates.
Just coming in and having this tour today, I am quite optimistic. We visited a number of different wards, the antenatal ward, the postnatal, and also the HDU unit, which is a pretty new unit, which is high dependency unit for mothers. And so it's a work in progress. We also see where there's a brand new elevator here and a second one going in. So I'm comforted just looking even at the maternity ward where we also saw the babies. I'm pleasantly surprised and as I said, hopeful as to what is to come. Speaking with the matron, speaking with the doctors and the plans ahead, I am quite happy about it. I'm going to be having a sit down with my Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton, and we'll give him a review of my 2 weeks on the job, and then we will go from there. There are quite a number of areas to work on, definitely, as we see. It's a work in progress, but it's a good work in progress, especially where the ward with the babies. I like what I see. It's very modern. Have some good equipment in there as far as even the incubators, but we are in need of more incubators, and so it's a work in progress. And so once I sit down with the minister, we can then decide where to go from here.
Mrs. Cuthbert-Flynn also said that the focus is on maternal health.
More ventilators are needed, but I think the doctors, after speaking with them, they're moving from 0 to now 4. And so again, staffing is also an issue. But I think as speaking with the doctors, they're getting there. The focus really is just on, maternal health in general. Before being proactive, and also the aftercare, as the doctor had mentioned. And so I think it's the entire, you can't just look at really definitely one area of maternal health. It's the whole woman, it's the whole person. It's the before, during, and after. And so all of that will be looked at, the different areas, to see where improvements can be made, and then go from there.
The Chief Medical Officer, CMO for the hospital, Dr. Garth MacDonald, in his remarks outlined the different services that are offered by the hospital.
The Victoria Jubilee Hospital, we know it's the prime maternity hospital of the island. The hospital essentially provides maternity services, antenatal, intrapartum, postnatal care. We provide adolescent care, adolescent health. We have a teenage clinic which caters for teenagers from under age 16, and that's a special clinic which is a pilot project for the entire island as well, where we have agencies like Sissoka involved. There is counseling in terms of the social worker and the psychologist, which we may need more psychologists. As we know, mental issues are major issues island-wide. And, in obstetrics, with the pregnant woman, this is also an area that needs additional focus and will need more staffing and personnel.
Dr. MacDonald further urged all women to get their pap smear done annually in an effort to detect and prevent cervical cancer.
We provide oncology care, meaning that's cancer care for patients who may have precancerous lesions leading. So we have a colposcopy clinic that looks at the cervix, looks at the abnormal pap smear. So we encourage all Jamaican women, I have to take this opportunity to encourage all women to have your pap smears done annually or every other year once it's normal, and should start at age 21 or 3 years after you have become sexually active. And in 2020, no woman should be diagnosed with cervical cancer if you are doing the right thing. It means it's preventable, it's a social disease, it's a social issue. So once they get vaccinated with the HPV vaccine, then that can be allayed.
Reporting for Mello TV News, I'm Kelleen May.
Still in news from the capital, Pastor Michael Day, Minister of Religion, who offered to help in assisting residents in the 3 Miles area of St. Andrew with relocation, is calling on Food for the Poor to come to the assistance of these residents.
Really disappointed in Food for the Poor make this great promise to us that these people would get these houses to put on the property of which I own, that of course they will be comfortable. Now this is the third appeal and this is the final straw here, where the tractor is here now. It's rolling now and it's what it is. And please, I'm very disappointed and I am appealing to Food for the Poor, please to respond immediately to this swift disaster here, because there's one person here who leave back and she have nowhere to go. And today this need give me my mandate to move towards Food for the Poor, to beg, not to demand, but to beg at your feet. Please, please give these houses immediately. Now we have COVID-19 and these people are all over, living all over in the country, sleeping here, sleeping there.
Meanwhile, our news team reached out to the Food for the Poor, and an executive of FFP Jamaica, Craig Moss Solomon, responded by expressing that, and I quote, Pastor Michael Day has in fact reached out to Food for the Poor, FFP, seeking assistance for residents in the 3 Miles area of St. Andrew. Based on the need that was expressed, a team from Food for the Poor visited the location and assessed the situation to see how best our charity would be able to assist. Pastor Day had specific stipulations about the housing layout, but was advised that while we do understand the urgency of the matter, there are specific housing requirements that must be in place in order for assistance to be provided. As we continue to work with Pastor Day to gather the relevant documentation, we are truly appreciative of the fact that he reached out to us, demonstrating his great concern for the residents. Our charity will continue the dialogue as we play our part in addressing the needs as quickly as possible. End quote. We will bring you more on this story in subsequent newscasts. In other news from the capital, Mayor of Kingston, Councillor Delroy Williams, toured the newly constructed square named after one of our national cultural icons, Miss Louise Bennett Coverley, in Gordon Town Square earlier today. Now, in speaking with our news team, Mayor Williams explained the progress on work being done on this project, as plans are in the making to do an official opening of the square.
Well, we are here looking at the Miss Lou Square, just doing our regular review of the square and its condition. We have not yet completed working on the square, so we are also evaluating it to that end. But also under the regulations, we are required to have a ceremony for the renaming. As you know, the resolution was passed in the Municipal Council, the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Council, and to rename the square Miss Louise Bennett Coverley Square, and that was done. And under the regulations, we are required to have a ceremony by law, and therefore we are examining and looking at the space now and seeing what additional works must be done, and before we have that ceremony, that small ceremony but very important ceremony in terms of fulfilling the regulations.
Now, when asked about plans to memorialize musical icon Toots Hibbert, who recently died, this is what Mayor Williams had to say.
Well, Toots Hibbert, we are very clear, the municipality is very clear on that matter. And it's against the background of, one, we are positioning the city as a destination city, as a tourism city. And two, we are very cognizant of our cultural history. It is the belief of myself as mayor, but the entire municipality, the administration, that the appropriate place to rest Mr. Hibbert is among cultural icons. And we believe that that is the Eros, that space in the Eros Park that is designated for cultural icons. Toots is a pioneer of the music, and that is without question. He's known internationally, but was very instrumental at the the beginning stage of our music and very instrumental in putting our music on the global stage. And the municipality, we believe that it would be quite in order to have him buried at the National Heroes Park in that area that is designated for cultural icon.
And those were the stories making news. I'll return with a recap. We'll now take a break and then join Christopher Scott with sports.
Jamaica Weekly, the voice of Jamaica, is Jamaica's newest and most exciting full-color tabloid newspaper, packed with news, sports, entertainment, and a whole lot more. Jamaica Weekly is free and is distributed every Thursday to businesses and consumers island-wide. Pick up your free copy of Jamaica Weekly today at major retail outlets near you, supermarkets, pharmacies, and service stations. For more information, call 876-616-3031. Jamaica Weekly. Pick up your free copy today.